My parents skipped my wedding because I married before my perfect sister. Now their perfect family image is finally crumbling. After being together for 4 years, I, 32F, got married 8 months ago. Everyone attended the wedding except my sister, Mullen, 30F, and my parents. My parents' decision to skip the event was surprising, but not entirely shocking. As for my sister, her absence didn't surprise me at all. We have never really gotten along. Still, given our history, I probably should have expected it. To give some background on our family dynamics, I can't completely blame my parents for always favoring my sister. She has been exceptionally good at almost everything her entire life. She was the center of attention in every room she entered. As soon as she could walk, she was winning spelling bees, science fairs, and talent shows in elementary school. In high school, she was class president, valedictorian, and prom queen. Tall, slim, and attractive, she pursued modeling in college before focusing on her business degree. She landed her first modeling job during her sophomore year, and I still remember how my parents celebrated it. They threw a lavish party, inviting family members and her friends. Her first professional headshot was framed and placed above the fireplace, where it still hangs today. That same year, I earned my degree in computer science. Their response was a simple "well done" before they went back to organizing Mullen's next photo shoot. After graduating, she quickly climbed the corporate ladder, securing a job at a prominent company. By 30, she already had a corner office and a company car, making her a senior executive. Meanwhile, I work as a mid-level software developer at a respectable company. I'm happy with my career. It's stable and fulfilling. But it's not the kind of job that makes parents boast to others. I'm also shorter and heavier than my sister. Growing up, my mother constantly made comments about my appearance. She signed me up for workout classes I didn't want to attend and put me on diets. She would say things like, "Mullen never struggles with her weight," or "you could look as nice as your sister if you put in more effort." By high school I had learned to ignore these remarks, but over time, they still affected me. Eventually, I accepted the differences in how we were treated. I came to terms with the fact that my parents would never take as much pride in my accomplishments as they did in Mullen's. What choice did I have? I spent years trying to earn their approval, taking classes they suggested, joining activities they encouraged, even briefly attempting modeling, which I failed at. Something my sister never lets me forget. But nothing was ever enough. I was just the second daughter, while they were completely captivated by hers. In my mid-20s, I stopped trying to impress them. I focused on building my own life, growing professionally on my own terms, and forming relationships with people who valued me for who I am. Honestly, things improved after that. Knowing my parents were obsessed with maintaining appearances, I kept my interactions with them superficial to avoid conflict. At Christmas dinners and family gatherings, I would smile and nod while they praised Mullen's latest job, partner, or vacation. Since they had her to admire, they barely noticed my emotional distance. Then, at a computer conference, I met my husband through a mutual friend. He truly saw me. He appreciated my dry sense of humor, my skills as a programmer, and even my body. From the beginning, he never suggested I change or compared me to anyone else. After 4 years of dating, he proposed while we were at home, eating takeout with our favorite show playing in the background. It was perfect. Naturally, I told my parents I was engaged. That should have been my first warning sign. There were no congratulations, just silence. Then my mother asked if I was sure I wanted to rush into marriage and suggested I should improve my physical condition before the wedding. My father barely said anything. At the engagement party, my husband noticed their strange behavior, something I was too anxious to fully process at the time. They stayed close together, withdrawn. My husband later told me that my mother spent most of the evening in a corner on her phone. He said he overheard my parents speaking with Mullen, who was clearly crying. They were saying things like this wasn't the plan, and that they never expected Rebecca to get married first. From what he could gather, despite not even being engaged at the time, there had already been minor setbacks in plans for Mullen's future wedding. My mother had even created multiple Pinterest boards for it. When it came to my own wedding, my mother showed no interest in helping me choose a dress or venue. When I picked a simple yet elegant aligned gown that made me feel beautiful, she only commented that it was practical and suited my figure. Most of the planning was done with my future mother-in-law, who treated me like the daughter she never had. Before sending out invitations, I carefully reviewed and double-checked the guest list with my fiancé to make sure no one was missed. I know my parents received theirs because the electronic invitations showed red receipts. When they didn't RSVP, I called, texted, and emailed them several times. My messages were either ignored or met with vague replies, saying they were busy and needed to check their schedules. I couldn't spend too much time worrying about it since I was busy preparing for the wedding. My in-laws were incredibly supportive, helping with everything from seating arrangements to flowers. Even at the bridal shower hosted by my husband's sister, no one mentioned the obvious absence of my own family. The wedding day itself was beautiful. We had a relaxed afternoon celebration following a morning ceremony in a garden setting. Everyone said we looked happy and deeply in love. Still, there were moments when their absence felt like a physical pain. Seeing the empty front row seats and missing out on the father-daughter dance. After the wedding and honeymoon, I reached out to them for answers. When I finally got them on the phone, they claimed they were deeply hurt because they had never received a formal invitation. My mother went on a long rant, accusing me of being careless and saying she had always dreamed of helping plan her daughter's wedding. She said she couldn't understand why I would exclude them from such an important event. I was confused because I knew we had sent both digital and physical invitations. During the call, I checked our records and confirmed that everything had been delivered, including the mailed invitations. I didn't confront them about trying to gaslight me. I simply apologized for the mistake and ended the call. Later, my husband pointed out several moments that revealed their true feelings, how they seemed surprised rather than happy when we announced our engagement, and how they constantly made excuses to avoid helping with the wedding. He hadn't mentioned these things earlier because he didn't want to add to my stress during the planning, but looking back, the pattern was obvious. The idea that I, the less successful daughter, was getting married before their beloved Mullen was something they couldn't accept. Their behavior only confirmed what I had always suspected but tried to deny. In their eyes, I would never measure up to my sister. What hurt the most was realizing that even my wedding day, something that should have been about love and a new beginning, became just another battleground in their ongoing effort to maintain their perfect family image, with Mullen at the center of it. Recently, Mullen got engaged to someone she's been dating for a year. From what I've heard through family group chats I'm not part of, my parents are openly excited and already planning an elaborate wedding for her. They're already boasting about securing upscale venues and luxury gowns, and my mother is taking Mullen to private fittings at high-end stores. The kind of mother-daughter time I was never given. Interestingly, many of our relatives are now refusing to attend Mullen's wedding and engagement party. Apparently my parents' behavior at my wedding has become a topic of discussion within the family. When relatives ask why my parents didn't attend my wedding, I simply tell them what I believe to be the truth. They couldn't handle that I got married before their beloved daughter. I state the facts as I see them, without exaggeration or trying to gain sympathy. A few days ago, my parents contacted me and accused me of deliberately trying to ruin Mullen's wedding. According to them, relatives have been making excuses to avoid attending her events. My cousin, whom my sister had confided in, told her that people are hesitant to come because they've heard about how my parents treated me. My parents insist that I'm spreading lies out of jealousy over my sister's lavish upcoming wedding. The truth is, I've only been telling people what actually happened. If that makes them look bad, maybe they should reflect on their own actions instead of blaming me. As things continue to unfold, it's becoming harder for me to maintain even the appearance of a relationship with my parents. Their behavior during my wedding made it clear that I would never be enough for them. No matter what I did, the hardest part isn't their absence at my wedding anymore. It's accepting that I never had the kind, supportive parents I always wished for. Right now, I'm focusing on building a life with someone who truly values me for who I am. I'll share updates if anything significant happens. First update. It's been 2 weeks since my last post, and a lot has happened. I finally decided to confront my parents in person about their behavior at my wedding and their accusations that I sabotaged my sister's big day. After reading your supportive comments, I felt it was time to lay everything out honestly. They had already been texting me about how I was damaging the family's reputation, and during our phone call, they quickly resorted to accusing me of being jealous of Mullen and orchestrating everything. This time, I did something I had never done before. I agreed with them, but not in the way they expected. Instead of defending myself, I said, "You're right. I am jealous, not of Mullen's career, her achievements, or her looks, but of the unwavering love and support you have always given her, and never even tried to give me." There was silence. Then my mother accused me of exaggerating and insisted they had always treated us equally. Something inside me finally broke. Years of suppressed emotions came pouring out. I reminded them of every birthday where Molin's latest success overshadowed mine. I brought up the time my mother canceled my high school graduation dinner because Molin had a modeling callback. I mentioned how her prom dress cost more than all my college textbooks for an entire year. I kept going, even as my father tried to interrupt me, accusing me of exaggerating. I told them what it was like to watch them spend years planning my sister's imaginary wedding while showing no interest in mine. I described how painful it was to see their seats empty at my wedding, and how my mother-in-law had to step in to help me with everything. From planning to dress shopping. Their reaction said everything. Instead of acknowledging anything I said, they turned it back on me. Why didn't you speak up if you felt this way? As if I hadn't spent years trying to be heard. My mother insisted I was being unfair. And my father said I was being spiteful for discussing these feelings with other family members. Then my mother said something that made everything clear. We never thought you'd go this far just to ruin Molin's wedding out of spite, but we always knew you were insecure about her success. This isn't how we raised you. At that moment, I realized they weren't even listening. To them, this entire situation had nothing to do with their actions or my feelings. It was all about how it affected Molin. Even during a conversation about their absence from my wedding, their focus remained on her upcoming one. For the first time in my life, I didn't try to fix things. I didn't apologize or take back what I said. Instead, I spoke to them plainly and said, "You're right about one thing, I was raised by you. You taught me that I would never measure up, that Molin's achievements would always matter more than mine, and that maintaining your perfect family image was more important than my feelings. But you also taught me something you never intended, that I deserve better than this." There was a long pause before my father responded in a calm, controlled tone. "Maybe it's time we stop pretending to be bad parents, since you've already decided we are. You clearly take satisfaction in seeing us suffer. We assumed as family, you would help resolve this situation. But it's obvious you've made your choice." Then my mother delivered the final blow. "Maybe you just couldn't handle not being the center of attention. We always tried to treat you both fairly, Rebecca. Turi. It's not our fault. You chose to play the victim." I didn't argue. There was no point. Everything I had been saying was just confirmed by their words. They couldn't take responsibility for anything. Even in that final conversation, nothing changed. I simply said goodbye and hung up. To my surprise, I felt relieved afterward. I did cry, but not the frantic, heartbreaking tears I remembered from my childhood. These were different, freeing. For the first time, I had said everything I needed to without holding back or feeling guilty. Later, my husband found me sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset. He sat beside me and took my hand without saying a word. "They're never going to change, are they?" I asked after a while. "No," he said, squeezing my hand, "but you have. And that's what matters." He's right. I've changed. The little girl who desperately sought her parents' approval is gone. The woman who walked away from that conversation doesn't need their validation anymore. Accepting that my parents will never be who I needed them to be is painful, but not as painful as constantly hoping they would change. For the first time, I don't really care what happens with my sister's wedding, or the family drama. I've said my piece, and now they can deal with the consequences. Strangely, it feels like a lifelong burden has finally been lifted. It's not the happy ending I once hoped for with my parents, but maybe it's the one I needed. The freedom to stop chasing love that should have been given unconditionally. Second update. It's been 3 days since my confrontation with my parents, and things have taken an unexpected turn. Molin decided to involve herself in the situation, but her approach failed badly. Yesterday morning, she sent me a carefully written message. Over the years, she's developed a condescending tone, and it was clear in her words. "What you said our parents was completely inappropriate. They've supported us throughout our lives and given us everything. You can't just accuse them of being bad parents because you're insecure about the choices you've made." She continued in her usual mix of superiority and subtle jabs. "I understand your wedding didn't turn out the way you imagined, but that doesn't give you the right to try to ruin mine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that reflects the effort some of us have put into meeting certain standards. Rebecca, not everything has to be a competition." I didn't respond. I've learned that engaging with her only gives her more opportunities to twist things. After years of dealing with her manipulative behavior, I simply blocked her number. Molin isn't someone who tolerates being ignored, so I expected that to be the end of it. A few hours later, my husband called me at work, laughing so hard he could barely speak. Apparently, Since she couldn't reach me, Mullen managed to get his personal number, probably through a mutual acquaintance, and sent him a series of messages, explaining why our relationship has always been strained. She started off sounding professional, as Rebecca's sister and someone who cares deeply about our family's well-being. I felt it was necessary to reach out, but it quickly revealed her true intentions. She told my husband that, as the new man in my life, it was his responsibility to help me behave more appropriately. Her messages became increasingly patronizing. Family dynamics are complicated, she explained to my husband, a professional software architect with an MBA, adding that someone like Rebecca with her sensitivity might not grasp the bigger picture. She urged him to help me see reason before I supposedly caused irreparable harm to family relationships. Her attempt to manipulate what she assumed were his social empathy on was the real kicker. She wrote, "Surely you understand that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future. Rebecca's behavior is only harming her own prospects, and, by extension, yours." Having always been able to see through Mullen's facade, my husband found her attempt at manipulation amusing. He particularly enjoyed her presumption that her business status or potential networking opportunities would impress him. In his own words, "She really doesn't know me at all, does she?" That evening we went over the messages together. I was laughing with my husband, rather than feeling upset or offended. Seeing Mullen's deceptive methods exposed, especially when aimed at someone completely impervious to them, was liberating. I learned something significant about my sister from this encounter. She remains the insecure adolescent who feels the need to diminish others to feel superior. Despite her achievements and success, she clearly knows little about genuine relationships. She believes she could control me by manipulating my husband. When her direct approach failed, that was the most revealing part. She had used similar tactics in high school, trying to turn my friends against me when she couldn't bully me directly. Different decade, same strategies. With this perspective, I now understand that Mullen's actions go beyond simple sibling rivalry. Throughout our childhood, she worked hard to maintain her status as the favored child, constantly reminding our parents and me how much better she was. She had to overshadow whatever I achieved and highlight my flaws to everyone I associated with. My response to her games is different now. 10 years ago, her messages would have triggered self-doubt. 5 years ago, they would have upset me. Today, I simply find her blatant manipulation attempts amusing. I'm done with he drama. My husband's response was perfect. Instead of getting pulled into her antics, he replied, "Thank you for your concern about Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, I'm focused on supporting her happiness, not managing her behavior. I suggest you direct any future concerns to Rebecca directly. Have a nice day." Mullen sent one final message after not getting the response she wanted. "I see she's poisoned you against the family too. Don't say I didn't try to help when this all blows up in your faces." Ironically, her attempt to intervene only strengthened my resolve to maintain distance from the toxic family dynamics. Nothing has changed, as evidenced by her messages to my husband. Nothing has changed, as evidenced by her messages to my husband. She remains the same cunning individual who feels compelled to control every story and sees any deviation from her ideal family script as a threat. Knowing that her attempts failed completely was perhaps the most satisfying part. Her actions brought my husband and me closer together, rather than driving us apart. Unbothered by her fears of social repercussions, we joked about her texts and planned a weekend trip. Over the evening, I realized that true family isn't about upholding facades or controlling narratives. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting one another. When someone tries to manipulate you, even your own sister, it's clear that maintaining distance is the healthiest choice. My husband and I have decided to focus on our own happiness. Real success isn't about impressing others. It's about making choices that serve you and surrounding yourself with people who encourage, not hinder, your growth. By that standard, I feel more successful than ever. Third update. 2 weeks after my sister's failed attempt to control my husband, events have taken an unexpected turn. The situation is worsening. Despite my parents' desperate efforts to protect their image, I've learned through family connections that they have been frantically trying to correct the narrative. They've been calling relatives, individually, accusing me of spreading malicious stories out of envy over Mullen's ideal wedding. According to them, I'm resentful, because her wedding will be far more sophisticated and extravagant. According to their latest version of events, I intentionally excluded them from my wedding so I could play the victim. It's ironic, They still live in the same home they've owned for 30 years and have used the same email addresses since email was invented, yet they claim I sent the invitations to an old email and an outdated physical address. The good news is that their attempts to control the narrative are failing spectacularly. Our family members aren't buying it. Several have shared personal stories of my parents' favoritism. One aunt revealed that my mother had pulled similar antics at past family weddings to ensure Mullen was the center of attention. The way my extended family has reacted to my parents' manipulation has been the most satisfying development. Important relatives, some of whom were expected to play major roles, have stopped supporting Mullen's wedding. They may no longer have access to exclusive venues arranged through family connections. Even a family friend's luxury garment business has unexpectedly faced scheduling conflicts. At a family gathering last weekend, things reached a breaking point. When someone innocently asked about my wedding photos, my mother became jealous and defensive. She launched into a tirade about how I had supposedly changed after getting married and was trying to ruin the family. Her outburst backfired, shocking several relatives who were unaware of the situation and further damaging her carefully maintained reputation. Ironically, my parents' frantic efforts to preserve their ideal family image are precisely why it's unraveling. Each time they try to justify their absence from my wedding, they reveal more of their true nature. The more they attempt to paint me as the villain, the more family members see through their deception. People are now taking sides. Even my father's brother, who had stayed silent to maintain peace, recently apologized for not speaking up sooner about how they treated me. He has decided not to attend any of Mullen's wedding events with his family. I don't have to respond to any of this directly. The truth is taking care of itself. Mullen and my parents continually expose their own destructive behavior whenever they try to twist the story. All those years I stayed silent, enduring their treatment to keep the peace, only allowed their true actions to go unchecked. My husband put it best. Over many years, they built a facade of the ideal family. But it was based on emotional manipulation and favoritism. Sooner or later, it was bound to collapse. Personally, I've never felt better. I no longer stress about winning my parents' approval, managing Mullen's emotions, or maintaining their perfect family image. For the first time in my life, I don't have to. Sometimes, the best form of retaliation is simply letting the truth speak for itself. I am deeply grateful to Reddit for giving me the courage to stand up for myself. You have no idea how much your guidance and encouragement have meant along this journey. Sometimes, seeing what true family support looks like, even from strangers online, is invaluable. Thank you for following my story. If you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more shocking real-life stories happening around you.